You think I'm going to make the same mistake as I did for Valor 2 Asia rewards last year and allow Mako to be at the top of my list? Don't even think about it. I'm just going through and ranking them however I want at the end of the day anyway. Hello, YouTube. Welcome back. It's a double whammy this week because Masters Shanghai is coming up. And while we already did the team rankings, power rankings, now it's time to see who we think are going to be the top 10 players of Master Shanghai. I almost said Pacific. So originally I had 4 categories. It was going to be eye test, mechanics, util / role, and extra like intangibles, right? So it's like IGLing, their agent pool, right? Their vibes and how much that matters for the team. Their like clutch genes, right? Things like that. Okay, so mechanics and util role we're gonna rate out of 10. This extra pool I might just rate out of 3. I don't want this to be like huge. I wanted to keep this in there just to give like a bit of an extra boost for players that I think have more value outside of just their individual mechanical skill. So mechanics is basically like aim and movement, right? Basically, how well do you fight? Just so we know kind of the standard that we're working off of. I would say something like something and like aspas would both be probably a 10. I think textures like a 8. Yeah, even 9 seems a little like textures peaks are like 15s, but here's the thing is that I look at Leo. I think Leo's one of the most perfect players that we've ever seen in Valorant. But do I think his individual mechanics are a 10 out of 10? I don't think so. I think a lot of it is he's really smart. It doesn't mean that his mechanics are bad. The difference is players like something in aspas, they will force their mechanics to make things work, right? Whereas I would say a player like Leo knows how to not have to always perform at peak mechanics to win the fight. Does that make sense? All right, util / role. This is basically how well do they utilize their agents / their role. It's about their timings. It's about their util usage. This is where like some of the smarts comes in. This one's a bit more of a flexible category, right? Because maybe some people are like specialists, like Jinggg. I think Leo is a 10. Don't even argue with me about that. I think Leo is technically the only 10. The only reason, I mean, you know what? Maybe Jinggg should be a 9 too. You know what? You're right. Jinggg misses results all the time. You're right. Jinggg should be a 9. The only 10 is our king Leo. At the end of the day, my top 10 is going to be full of my opinions. We can score these guys all we want. This is just to give myself a reference point. In case you guys forgot the plot. You guys think that I'm just going to go off of these totals? You think I'm going to make the same mistake as I did for Valor 2 Asia rewards last year and allow Mako to be at the top of my list? Don't even think about it. I'm just going through and ranking them however I want at the end of the day anyway. These are intangibles, right? So these are like your IGLing, your agent pool, the vibes is just kind of a joke. But, you know, like your overall, like, just like clutch genes, right? That's partly mechanics, but, you know, some players just turn it on when they're in a clutch, etc., etc. And this is not out of 10 because that would be ridiculous. We're going to make this fine. We'll do it out of 5. Guess what? Forsaken gets a 5. This category was made for Forsaken. All right. Let's see from our scores. Just so we're clear, this is not the final ranking. I'm just going to do whatever I want anyway. But from our scores, how would we rank them? So out of contention just from our own crazy scoring system is Chichu, Mind Freak, Woot, Life, and CNUD. I'm fine with all of them being out of the running except for CNUD, quite frankly. Top 10 players by the one and only always correct William Chobra Cho. Boom. So let me explain my awesome logic. So this is our final top 10 list after all this time. I don't even know how long this took. This took over an hour to do. That's crazy. But I think that goes to show that obviously we're going to have a great tournament at Masters Shanghai. This is purely my opinion, but my opinion's like really good. So take that as you will. So let's go up the list. So obviously there's like no thrill and suspense because I just have it on my screen. But right off the bat, Jinggg. Listen, honestly, there's a world where I would like Jinggg is one of those players where everything else tells you that he's not quite top 10 level until you realize just how darn good he is on Raze. And then you're like, well, he has to be top 10. Like there's, yeah, like there's just no There's no explanation against that. And I would say he still has room to get back to his prime form. Like, he's almost there, but I would say he needs to get back to prime form. So Jinggg, really, really good on the raise. And I would say not just the raise, but how he dives and entries as the raise is really, really good. His movement and the satchels is really, really good. The micro movements, everyone's always talked about it. We've all talked about it to no end. And then his stage is still not bad. I would say the Util usage, like the res usage, is a little bit questionable, but overall the sage usage isn't bad. Now, the only reason, despite how flashy he can be, that he's barely in the top 10 is because it's very clear that the team plays around him. The team plays to enable him. Probably because they have faith that he's meant to be the superstar player. Great, I'm all for it, but they play around him quite a bit. Next up is going to be Benjyfishy. Now, there's an argument that maybe, how in the world is Jinggg under Benji? I don't know. It's my list, and I don't know. But the real reason is I think Benji brings so much for Heretics. He enables so much of the rest of the team to go aggro. His anchoring is so good. He's very smart about his anchoring, and then his aim is really sharp as well. But the way he sets up his util, the way he works around it, and then also obviously, count this as you will, but I'm done trying to be as objective as possible. The vibes that he brings, he even enables the opponent teams like PRX. So clearly the vibes are just oozing out of this guy. So Benjyfishy is very, very strong. But honestly, I really think. And here's the other thing. I think Benji also is one of those. This isn't a category for my ranking, but I also believe that he's got even more to show. To me, he's kind of like how I used to rate Meteor and Gen G. Like, he's the guy who's stable, smart, and sharp that enables the rest of the team to go a little crazy. Benji's making it work even better for Heretics than Meteor was in stage 1. I would say at the beginning of the year, maybe I would have rated Meteor higher. And then Cryo. Quite frankly, this one could come back to bite me one way or the other, right? I think Cryo's in a state where he kind of has to get retested internationally, obviously. And whether it works or not, obviously, again, 100 Thieves is another one of those teams where the team really works around to enable each other. They're really playing to each of their strengths. And so all credit to Zeeks and whoever else on the playing staff that's really part of that discussion. But he seems to be back in form, right? He seems to be really comfortable. He seems confident to take those fights again, and he's very successful through and through. I think he's put up very, very consistent stats with some high peaks as well throughout Americas. And then on top of that, he's now found a new secondary comfort zone on things like the Brim, the Smokes, whenever they need a raise. So he can really just play to his best strengths, etc., etc. Then it's KangKang. A lot of people seem really down on China as a region. And we're not even talking about home crowd buff, right? That's not even here nor there. But like, KangKang seems to be coming back. I don't know why everyone's so down on this guy still. Well, listen, I was kind of down on him, right? I was kind of down on him and EDG, especially after Madrid. Like, I was thinking, okay, maybe they come out a little stronger again. Like, I had some faith, and then it was like, okay, clearly still not. During stage 1, I feel like EDG made some micro changes, right? KangKang opping a lot more again, being the pure duelist, etc., etc., and the team working to kind of set him up. And I think he's feeding off of that energy again. I think he's kind of rejuvenated, right? But I think his opping alone, and on top of that, therefore, how confidently he can now be the spearhead for EDG is very, very powerful. You can say all you want that he's playing in a weaker region, but here's the other thing. I think mechanically they're not necessarily a weaker region, right? I think mechanically they're not necessarily a weaker region. It's just strategically. So maybe as a team they might get stumped again, but I think KangKang is gonna. I think he's gonna come back in a big way here at Masters Shanghai. Number 6, it's going to be Texture. Listen, I know Texture currently holds the record. I casted that game. Achilles and I were just counting the kills until he reached over 101. And then he reached even more. He got 105 kills in a best of 5. He's currently the best player in the world if we're just going off of records. No one has ever even come close, all right? All these Americas players, they think they're great with 101 kills in a best of 5. That's not even 103. That's not even 104. Texture has 105. Yes, I get it. But you just zoom out just a little bit more. And honestly, Texture has gone back to a bit of that inconsistency that I used to see in him in the old days that used to make me doubt him. Now, it's not enough for me to doubt him. Overall, his range is still very high, which is, I mean, he's in my top 10 list in the world, so at Masters Shanghai. So it's like, he's still a very, very good player. But, and it's not even that, like, the team, it's not just when the team is getting, like, stumped. There are just games where Texture just doesn't feel that he's in the zone. There are games where Texture feels like he needs a bit more warm-up, or he's a little bit at his wit's end, and then he tries to overextend to get stuff done, and then that doesn't work out. And it's like, if you're overextending and it's a bad choice, but you're still able to win out the fights, then fine. You know what? I may not like it if I was your coach, but you're making it work, so I can't say anything against it because you're bringing results. But he wasn't. Not consistently. Not during stage 1, right? So to me, he's a player to watch out for as a top 10, right? He could absolutely be the MVP of this tournament. He could absolutely be the star. He could absolutely take the tournament by storm. But compared to the players I have in the top 5, I don't think it's as likely. I think it's a bit more of it has to land on the right day. Now moving on to our top 5. And isn't this exciting? Wow, it's not Fnatic taking over the rankings anymore, but instead it's clearly one of the best teams in the world. I'm gonna hold my tongue on that. One of the best teams in the world is PRX dominating the rankings. We got Forsaken coming in. I mean, listen, he's flashy, he's quick, he's actually, I think he's one of the smartest players on PRX. I think he might be one of the smartest players overall in VCT. Just the fact that he can flex onto so many different agents as the team needs. And then starting with the top 5, a lot of this also goes into what I like to see in a player. The fact that he's willing to flex, right? The fact that he's willing to say, I'll play whatever agent we need to make this comp work. I'll play whatever agent we need to enable Jinggg to play even better, right? The fact that he's willing to do that and still can confidently put in the work to perform at a top level in the world on these agents, on these roles, right? He's lurking as the breach and he's making it work with the long range fault lines. You can't not like this guy. You can't not rate this guy highly. He may not always have the cleanest mechanics. Like, he's not always super clean, but obviously the peaks are there. If he ever needs to clutch, he's able to do it. You know, if he's ever in a 1vx, he's able to do it. His harbor is also very good. He's also very creative. Now, again, it comes at a cost of being a little bit too liberal and not always being the cleanest. He's not the cleanest player. He gets a little muddy on his own sometimes, but it's very creative and it's to a good effect. There's a reason for it. It's not him just like stumbling. He's kind of pushing the limits. He's a limit tester and he's darn good at it. Next up, Devi in number 4. We got to put more respect to his name. It's crazy because every chance I get, I feel like I'm always saying Devi is underrated, and we all talk about him. We're like, yeah, Devi is underrated, and then the next time we're like, Devi is underrated. We got to talk about him more. He's so important to PRX, and people are like, I agree. We're like, no, Devi really is underrated, and yet here we are, and I still think Devi is underrated. It's crazy. People are talking about it all the time in Reddit comments, and I still think Devi is underrated. I don't know why. I don't know how this is possible, but like, Devi is the backbone of PRX, okay? Devi just holds it together. And to me, that's so important on a team like PRX. And Devi, the craziest thing is Devi is like mega calm. He plays so calm, he plays so patient, and yet he's always right next to people like Jinggg, something in Forsaken, to enable them, right, with his utility. And then if they need, he can play that Sentinel. He can go back to playing Sentinel. He's also one of the best oppers on PRX. It's crazy to say that, but he is. I mean, they're all pretty good, but he is amazing with the op as well. Like, he's just like Forsaken. I would say the difference is Forsaken has a deeper agent pool, but Devi's right behind him. But on top of that, I think Devi has a deeper like positional pool. Now into our top 3. And I think the top 3 is generally going to be pretty similar for most people, I think. Just because these guys just stand out. They stand out in one way, or more than one way, I should say. So first off, aspas. Always has been discussed as, and still is, one of, if not the most gifted, mechanically gifted players in the world, right? He's consistently putting crazy numbers just on his own, and when his team enables him, he does it even better. And currently he is in a team that seems to really look to enable him very well. So that's great. So I think while, you know, there was a little bit of rockiness last year up and down, I think he's right back in a comfort zone where he's just able to go and frag out, get kills, create space through kills. And he's got the mechanics to enable him to do that, to get into dicey situations and still able to carry out the team. One of the best to do it. Now, right next to him is going to be something in 2. Now, both of these, I think there's a little bit of argument back and forth, but, and maybe this is not necessarily bias, but just familiarity with Pacific. But if I'm looking at it now from like, if I was a coach or if I was an owner of a team, something has shown a little bit more flexibility and willingness, and also a little bit more creative ideas. Now, I would argue that maybe something therefore sometimes gets into dicier situations, similar to Forsaken. Maybe aspas is cleaner, but I mean, something absolutely sometimes. He just makes tier 1 players look like fools sometimes, right? He just absolutely clowns on tier 1 players sometimes. And he's still very crisp and clean. And then on top of that, he's actively finding new agents that he can play to really make something work, right? Haha, get it? For the team. So the Gecko, like last year was the Breach. I would say the Breach was like it was an okay experiment, but he didn't really shine on it. It was more like, oh, like his Breach is fine, and then his aim is still really good, so it works out. But his Gecko is actually getting smarter and smarter. His Util is getting smarter and smarter. He's still able to op with it as well. He's just so confident in his mechanics to op without an escape mechanism and all of that. So you gotta give him credit. You gotta give him credit. I mean, something is good. I think he's going to make highlights happen. Listen, he had some jitters in the very beginning of Champions last year, but he's now been there, done that. He's gotten to the grand finals. He's tasted victory and defeat, and I think he's gonna come back to Masters Shanghai super hungry, and he's gonna really play at peak potential. But it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the most perfect player to ever touch Valorant so far is Leo on Fnatic. Leo's just the perfect package. Leo's just the perfect package. He's not the flashiest player, but he is always good for more than one. He's always good for more than one, and it's not just about frags. He's always good for taking space. He's always good about reading the map. He's always good about creating space for the rest of the team. Like, if you had to start a team with one guy, for me, it has to be Leo. Like, if you have Leo on the roster, it's hard to make that Leo go it's hard to make that roster suddenly just like not work at all. You know what I mean? It may not always become the best roster, but Leo will just make things happen for the team. He knows how, like, Leo plays for the best winning condition every time. I think that's the best way to put it. And that's it. That's my top 10 list. As you can tell, we got some honorable mentions. It's CNED, right? It's just, with him coming back into form, him being really comfortable, it feels rough to leave him out of the list. And then Boostio. I mean, listen, he also kind of does it all, right? He's got pretty decent mechanics. You know, he's obviously made a name for himself as Killjoy Opera last year on EG. But great reads, enables his teammates very well, the showmanship, the taunts, etc. If you want a player to watch out for, if you want a player to just kind of follow along their career, I think Boostio is a great one to pick out. And Smoggy, I just really wanted to put in there because to me, Smoggy is kind of similar to the Devise, the Meteors, right, of the teams, you know, the Benjyfishies. Very, very, very backbone-like, that enables the rest of the team to do well, very reliable, you know, similar to Leo in terms of what role, like what he's providing to the team, but obviously not quite at the same level. So I just think, you know, EDG, very well known for KangKang. He's flashy. He's the superstar, absolutely. But I think Smoggy is allowing them to pop off even further. This is absolutely the top 10 players going to Masters Shanghai. That's going to be it for this one. If you think I just made a huge mistake by leaving a player out, let me know who it is down below in the comments. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel for more